Hey, this is Joe Hubbard from JoeHubbardBassVideos.com, and welcome to Advanced Bass. In this particular lesson, I'm going to teach you a cool symmetric pattern that outlines the giant steps changes over the first 4 bars of a blues progression. So with that in mind, grab your bass and let's get started. In the late 50s, John Coltrane was experimenting with different types of chord substitutions that eventually led to the inception of his legendary hallmark, giant steps. This unique chord progression later became known as Coltrane Changes and is often used as a harmonic substitution that's superimposed over the blues, rhythm changes, and other jazz standards. Pay close attention to what's happening in the first 4 bars of this blues progression that's coming at you now. Giant steps changes are symmetrical as it's built using the cycle of descending major thirds. So with that in mind, this progression divides the octave into 3 equal parts and then returns to the original chord at the end of 4 bars. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the giant steps changes that we're going to superimpose over the first 4 bars of the blues. Now, if you were going to take the straight giant steps changes, they'd be like this, and we're in F, so it'd be F major for 2 bars, then they go to A flat 7, D flat major 7, E 7, A major 7, then C7, and then resolve back to the original chord, which was F major 7. But in a blues, if the piano player suddenly decided that he was going to use this as a harmonic substitution, they would usually just transfer all of the chords to a dominant 7th. Now, and that would be like this. So you'd have F7 to A flat 7 to D flat 7 to E7 to A7, then C7, and then you resolve back to F7. So we really want to start with F7 and end with F7, so that's a good sort of practice to follow. But the thing is to bear in mind that the actual line that we're going to play, that doesn't matter. That can fit over the changes with the major 7ths or the changes with the dominant. So it's useful to superimpose over the blues with this pattern, and you can very well take that same pattern and just apply it to giant steps itself. Let's go ahead and unpack this by starting with the symmetrical pattern using the giant steps changes, which consists of 3 root 3 5 to flat 7 9 root flat 7. Notice how this symmetrical pattern lends itself very well to the bass guitar fingerboard. Okay, so taking a look at the symmetrical pattern that outlines the giant steps changes, we're going to start on an F7, and I'm going to play a 4-note pattern which is going 3 root 3 5, and then the next chord is A flat 7. That moves up a minor third. It's important to understand the intervallic distance between the chords that we're playing here. So A flat 7, we start on flat 7, go to 9, go back to the root, and then go back to the flat 7. So the first bar is going to go like this. Okay, so then what happens from there? The intervallic distance to the next chord is up a perfect 4th or down a perfect 5th, and that's going to be D flat 7. It's also important to note that that's the second point of the cycle of descending major thirds, because we started at F7 and now we're going down to the D flat 7, and that's down a major third. So I'm going to just simply apply the same pattern. So I go 3 root 3 5, and then the next chord is E7, which is a minor third above, and I'm going to play flat 7 9 root flat 7. Okay, so then again I move up a perfect 4th or down a perfect 5th, and I go to A7, and again this is the last point of the descending major third cycle, and I play the same pattern. So I go 3 root 3 5, and then the chord above that is C7, which is a minor third above, and I start on the flat 7, go to 9, root, and flat 7. So my whole pattern so far is this. which produces this really cool pattern on the fingerboard, and it really works well. I'll play that a little slower. Notice how this can work over this idea where we're superimposing this over the blues, where it's really starting and ending on a dominant seventh chord, but it also, the same line will work over giant steps. And the reason is because on those chords that are descending through the cycle of major thirds, we're just using the lower structure of those chords, so that's going to work really well on that. So the idea here is that the last bar, it then goes up a perfect fourth or down a perfect fifth to the F7, and in the last bar what I play is a little 2-5 lick using C minor 7 to F7. It goes like this. And that's quite a nice thing leading into the rest of the solo, so the whole line is this. Just a little bit slower. Okay, now you go try it. I'd like to point out here that this isn't just some sort of random chord substitution that creates an outside sound, but instead a well-structured symmetrical pattern that clearly outlines the three-tonic system of descending major thirds. Next, I'd like to follow this up with an analysis of the rest of the solo over the following 8 bars. Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of the solo. If we're starting on bar 5, we have a B flat 7, and what I'm playing is a little bebop lick. It's a 4-note pattern, which you see a lot. It's basically starting on the 5th, goes double chromatic down, and then back up to the 5th. And you see that used a lot as a cell. Michael Brecker loves that lick, and so many jazz players. It's just part of jazz repertoire. You can use it in your walking bass lines and your solos, and it's all over jazz improvisation as a sort of vocabulary historical thing. So I'm playing that, and then I go down to the chromatic below the 3rd, and then the root, and then the 5th. So that's the whole line. There. And then the next chord is basically putting a E flat 7 that's taking us back to the F7. And that works kind of like a flat 7-7 going back to 1-7. This is often used as a kind of substitute for a 5 chord, leading us back to that 1 chord. And what I'm playing there is a B flat minor major 7 pattern over that E flat 7 that takes us back to the 1-7 chord. So then what happens there is that leads nicely into the 1-7 chord, because I'm then playing that double chromatic back into the 3rd of the 1-7 chord, and then playing this bebop lick where I go from the 3rd down to the 2, down to the root, and then double chromatic down to the flat 7, and then back up to the 2 or the 9. So, and then just ending that off by playing the root down to the flat 7. Okay, the next part of it leads us into that the D7, which is that secondary dominant, that 5-7, leading us back into the 2 minor 7 chord. And that's kind of a characteristic chord in a blues, in a jazz blues, to really kind of try to nail. And over this, I'm playing a diminished idea that leads me back into that minor 7 chord. And then that minor 7 chord, I'm just playing kind of a real bebop 2-5-1 lick, arpeggiating down the triad, the G minor triad, to the flat 7, and then outlining that E diminished, or thinking of it as a C7 flat 9 chord. So gives us that 2-5 kind of pattern that leads us into there. And then Then what I'm doing is playing over the C7, and this is kind of a cool lick. You probably heard me do this quite a lot. And then what's happening there is I'm playing double chromatic above the flat 7, and then I play a double chromatic above the root. See how that's targeting that root? That's where that wants to go. But instead of going there, I go from there, double chromatic above the 5th, and then before I resolve to the 5th, I play the root, and then I play the 5th. That's what's called staggered chromatics. So the line is this. And then it kind of ends on a sort of, 3 against 4 type of polyrhythm idea just on that root. So what I want you to do is take these ideas, follow along with that PDF, and work these things out bar by bar. Get it under your fingers. You can see the way I'm playing it, so study along with how I'm actually fingering these things. And then work this out, and then try to take it into a few different keys. You'd be amazed at how much that'll change everything that you do. Just do it in one other key, and you'll just see huge improvements straight away. Okay, take that and run with it. This is a complex subject that goes way beyond the scope of this short video, so I implore you to do some homework and dig down deep into John Coltrane's music. To begin understanding jazz improvisation on a deeper level, please join me at joehubbardbassvideos.com, where I have hundreds of videos that will take you from an intermediate to advanced bass player in a relatively short amount of time. I also teach privately on Skype and have a catalog of self-published books that are exhaustive resources for your improvement. Until next time, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively.